Rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I say rejoice. It's these words from Paul's letter to the Philippians that really give us the name of today's celebration, Gaudete Sunday, the third Sunday of Advent, where our focus, if you caught the theme throughout all the readings, is on rejoicing. That's right. It's entering into joy, into celebration in a sense. We are, of course, in Advent preparing for the celebration, the feast of the Nativity of our Lord, of Jesus Christ, his birth. And so we are on that journey of preparation, but we enter into celebration, right? And what it means to celebrate is really for us to heighten or broaden the sense of the event that we are commemorating, that we're celebrating. Human beings love to celebrate. We all like to get together for birthdays or graduations, or we do that for weddings. We get together to celebrate a new year. We do holidays, all these kinds of things that we recognize are part of almost what we feel compelled to do as human beings. Have you ever met somebody that you found out it was their birthday and they say, "Oh, I don't celebrate my birthday"? Something's wrong with them, right? We all want to celebrate. And that celebration really draws us deeper into our own unity with others, expanding our horizons of being able to be grateful. I mean, it deepens the meaning of the event that we are celebrating in all those ways when we celebrate well, right? In our own culture, though, oftentimes we don't celebrate well. What we've replaced celebration with is excess. We think we have to go over the top, right? We either do that through drink or food or partying hard, where we feel like we have to reach some level of excitement to celebrate, and we substitute real celebration for that excess, or sometimes that's even frenzy. Like we get so caught up in the details that we don't enter into the celebration because we're trying to make it so big, right? And we miss that real connection to others and the deepened meaning of the event. In fact, oftentimes what we end up doing is feeling more tired and more alone after the celebration when we go to excess. Of course, the other extreme of that spectrum is that we just see it as something we have to do, right? We see it as a duty, and so we enter into it without any joy, sort of a joyless duty that's a task and obligation before us that we have to fulfill, right? When we come to the Eucharist each Sunday, that is a celebration of the Eucharist, right? We are coming to celebrate well together, to expand our horizons, to connect deeply with one another, to show our gratitude that these things are part and parcel of this celebration, and it's part and parcel of the feast that we're preparing for Christmas, right? And when we enter into celebration and we're able to do that well, then that does, in fact, deepen the meaning for each of us. It makes us joyful, right? It expands our hearts and we receive peace. And so there are some obstacles that are in the way sometimes for us to be able to do things joyfully. And so instead of either excess or instead of, joyless duty. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for reminding me. This is going to be an aside, and then I'll get right back to it. I was reflecting upon my ordination and my first Mass of Thanksgiving that I had, and one of the things I struggle with, and God knows I struggle with, is perfectionism and pride. And so I had my first Mass, and I forgot one of the prayers before the Eucharistic prayer that you're supposed to say. And I thought, God wanted to remind me that I needed to work on my pride and perfectionism. And then we had the new translation of the Roman Missal come out, and I thought, this is my moment of vindication. The first time we say the Mass with the new translation of the Roman Missal, and guess what? I forgot the same prayer. So I'm not done. Anyway, so excess or duty, right? So we have excess or duty. The middle road, or a new way, a different way of being able to enter into celebration is something that I think of maybe as joyful duty. Right? We do have an obligation to celebrate, but we can do that joyfully. But there are some obstacles for us that make it more difficult to enter into joyful duty or joyful celebration. And I think those are really some things that are either external to us or are internal to us. And if they're external to us, they can be either something that's naturally external or something that's morally external to us. And same with the interior, either something naturally interior or morally interior. And so if we look at what an morally or an exterior natural thing might be, that's the circumstances of our lives, right? Those are the things that happen that might make it more difficult to enter into joy. And that can be our schedules, how busy we are. That can be the interruptions that we have. That may be the difficulties or the challenges of life or the things around us. Or, so it's just these things form an obstacle to entering into joy that can be overcome. Or if it's an external thing that's moral, that might be something like a neighbor who's not nice, right? We see in them something of the moral failure that they have, right? So we have a joyful duty to love our neighbor. And if our neighbor is pleasant and kind and generous, that becomes easy to do. But when the neighbor is cantankerous and mean-spirited and jealous, that becomes much more hard for us to fulfill our duty joyfully to love our neighbor. If the interior things are similar, so we may have an interior obstacle that's based upon the natural order of things. So that's really part of our human condition. How is our body functioning, right? Are we tired? Are we hungry? Are we sleepy? Even we have a word for one of these obstacles. We call it hangry, right? I'm angry because I'm hungry, right? And so we can see that there's natural obstacles for us and then also moral obstacles within ourselves. We see that as our own woundedness, our own weaknesses, our own sinfulness, the things that we return to in replace of love within us. We continue to struggle with those. And all these things can be obstacles. And so what are we to do, right? How do we get through and overcome the obstacles to joy? What are some of the ways we can do that? And I think the gospel reading is very helpful for us because in the gospel reading, John the Baptist is preaching good news to the people. Lots of people come to hear the good news. They come to be baptized by John for repentance of sins. And so they're coming, and there's the general crowds, and we hear the tax collectors and the soldiers that are coming. And he gives them specific instructions on what to do. They all ask, what should we do? And so if you have 2 cloaks, share one. If someone is in need of food, share your food with them. Don't extort. Don't charge more than you're supposed to. Don't bear false witness or falsely accuse someone, right? Be content, satisfied with your wages, right? These are very concrete and specific things in response to the good news that John is preaching, the coming of the Messiah, right? He is preaching that the long-awaited one has arrived. And so there are very concrete and relatively small and basic steps to take to respond to that good news. One of the ways that I think we can do that for us, as we look at the concrete things we can do in preparation for entering the joy of Christmas, is that we can remember the words of St. Teresa of Calcutta. So Mother Teresa said, and you may be very familiar with this, but she said, we cannot all do great things, but we can do small things with great love. We can do small things with great love. This opens our hearts more to the possibility of joy, of giving ourselves away. And so very concrete and specific things that we can do. A couple of examples as I was reflecting on my ordination. At my ordination, after the ordination, and we had celebrated the Eucharist and we were distributing communion, in the line comes forward one of my classmates from high school who I hadn't seen since graduation. It was like a blast from the past, right? And it was such a joyful moment for me to see her again in that moment. Her small act was coming to my ordination, right? And that was a great act that she did in love for me. Or on Wednesday, past week, that was my actual anniversary date. And I had been texting my mom in the morning because we were trying to set up dinner. And she said, well, I'll see you soon. And then I walked over to celebrate Mass, and she was here. I didn't know that. It was a surprise. So if you want to feel loved, have your mom show up on the day of your anniversary at daily Mass, right? Unexpectedly. So it's great. And Mom is here today. So Mom, I love you. Thank you for everything. And I mean everything. And so I'm grateful for you and for you being here. And that was a great moment of joy for me because of her small act of love for me, done with great love. And then just yesterday, I got an email, and I had been mentoring when I was at Goodfellow Air Force Base. So in 1993, I was mentoring a couple other guys in the chapel program in their faith, right? And then for 31 years, I had not heard or spoken or talked to either one of them. And yesterday, I got an email from one of them. And that email was just an email of appreciation, how important that relationship had been to him, what a difference it had made in his life, and how grateful he was to me for that. And it brought me great joy. His little act of sending me an email gave me great joy, done with love. It was almost like that was an anniversary gift from God to me, right? And so we can do these small steps with great joy. 3 years ago, Archbishop Shelton, no, it wasn't you, it was Pope Francis. Very similar. Pope Francis was reflecting on Gaudete Sunday, and he was saying we can prepare. What's our part? What can we do to prepare? And we only have 10 days left until we celebrate Christmas. To enter into that joyfully, what can we do? And so his advice, he kind of goes through a whole list of possible small, concrete things that we could do. Maybe we call someone who is alone. Maybe we go to visit with someone who is sick. Maybe we help feed someone who is hungry or visit with someone who is poor, do something that we can do. Maybe we have to ask for forgiveness from someone, or maybe we offer forgiveness to someone, or he also said clarifying a situation where there's ambiguity, or even just trying to do a small thing for a neighbor, right? He kind of summarizes all of that by saying, brothers and sisters, let us find something and do it. As we approach these last 10 days for the joyful celebration of Christmas, I encourage you to find something and do it. Open your heart some so we can overcome the obstacles that are in the way and be able to enter into celebrating worthily and well the birth of Jesus. There's time left for us to be able to prepare our hearts. May we rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I say, rejoice.